Let's be blunt from the start. Memory is not harmless. People like to treat it as neutral, but it isn't. Memory carries emotion, judgment, and identity. And when you don't see that clearly, memory stops being information and starts being control. For conscious creators, this matters more than most people realize. Awareness creates. Where your attention goes, reality flows. If your attention keeps going back to the past, then creation doesn't stop, it loops. Same outcomes, same frustrations, same limits wearing new clothes. Memory feels convincing because it's familiar. Familiarity gives the illusion of truth, but familiar does not mean accurate, and repetition does not mean destiny. The present moment does not care who you were. Reality does not check your history before responding. It responds to what you are assuming, embodying, and acting from right now. When you live inside memory, you stop authoring your life and start confirming it. You stop choosing and start repeating. This is not a talk about reflection or healing stories. It's about power. And power only exists in the present moment.
A lot of people think they're being responsible by holding on to the past. They believe remembering everything keeps them grounded, realistic, honest. What they're actually doing is giving authority to something that no longer exists. Memory was meant to guide action, not define identity. The moment memory defines who you are, it becomes a ceiling, and growth feels dangerous, change feels wrong, effort collapses under labels formed years ago. You hear it constantly. That's just how I am. I've always struggled with this. I know how this goes. But this isn't self awareness, that's self confinement. Presence is active, memory is static. When static identity outranks present effort, nothing moves. When you're not obligated to keep carrying old versions of yourself just because you remember them, memory does not outrank awareness. It never has. Use memory when it helps you to act better now. The moment it limits you, defines you, or keeps you cautious, it's crossed the line. Presence is not denial, it is authority.
There's a particularly ugly way memory gets used, and it needs to be named plainly: moral superiority through remembrance. This is when people bring up the past not to learn, but to control. They drag up old mistakes, old failures, old weak moments to keep someone exactly where they feel comfortable seeing them. It sounds like realism, it sounds like accountability, but it's ego protecting position. Families do this, partners do this, spiritual communities do this, creative circles do this. Someone changes, and instead of meeting them now, others reach backwards for proof. Don't forget who you were. What that really means is don't outgrow the version of you I understand. Freezing someone in their worst moment is not wisdom. It's fear pretending to be insight. It's insecurity hiding behind memory. When memory is used to dominate identity instead of inform behavior, it becomes a weapon. And conscious creators need to see this clearly because ego hides very comfortably inside moral language.
The most damaging version of that dynamic happens internally. People punish themselves with memory and call it responsibility. They replay old failures to stay humble. They rehearse shame to stop themselves getting too confident. They believe suffering keeps them honest, but it doesn't, it keeps them stuck. Judging your past self using your current awareness is dishonest. You didn't have the same clarity. You didn't have the same emotional regulation. You didn't have the same tools or perspective. I did the best I could with what I was then. is not an excuse, it's accuracy. And accuracy matters because false self judgment destroys confidence at the root. You cannot change your self concept while constantly dragging outdated identities into the present and demanding loyalty to them. You don't move beyond the past by arguing with it. You move beyond it by refusing to let it decide who you are now. That refusal is not avoidance, it's actually precision.
Here's something most conscious creators avoid admitting. Memory feels powerful because it feels safe. Familiar pain feels safer than unfamiliar possibility. Known disappointment feels easier than risking change. Ego would rather repeat what it understands than face uncertainty. But creation does not happen inside safety. It happens inside presence. Presence without precedent. Presence without guarantees. Presence without a script written by yesterday. Every time you replay the past, your nervous system reacts as if it's happening again. Same stress response, same contraction, same identity. The body does not know the difference between memory and now. That's why people say they understand the work but feel stuck. Their awareness says, I want something different. But their attention keeps instructing reality to repeat. Stop asking what technique that you're missing. Stop searching for another method to fix yourself. Ask one question instead. Where does my attention spend most of its time? Attention is instruction. It tells reality what to reinforce. If your attention lives in memory, repetition is not a mystery, it's compliance. Presence interrupts that compliance. Nothing else does.
This is why supporting effort over identity matters so much and why it's misunderstood. Effort exists in the present. Identity lives in memory. When you reward identity, you freeze people. When you support effort, you allow movement. The same rule applies to you. Every time you say, that's just who I am, you shut down responsiveness. You stop engaging with what's possible now and start defending an old position. Authenticity is not loyalty to memory. Authenticity is responding honestly to what's happening now. Conscious creation isn't about maintaining a self image, it's about staying available to change, available to act even when you don't feel fully ready, available to update assumptions when reality challenges them. You don't need to erase the past to move forwards. You don't need to heal every memory before acting. You need to stop letting memory outrank present effort. Support movement, not labels. Support responsiveness, not stories. Identity will reorganize itself automatically when effort is allowed to lead.
Let's get very clear. Memory becomes ego when it keeps you cautious instead of alive. Memory becomes ego when it keeps you small instead of honest. Memory becomes ego when it convinces you that your past has authority over your current choices. You do not owe the past consistency. You owe the present clarity. Bad memories are warnings, not prisons. Good memories are reminders, not destinations. Everything else is indulgence disguised as insight. Ego survives by confusing familiarity with truth. It tells you that because something happened before, it must keep happening. That assumption ruins most lives without being questioned. If you are serious about authorship, memory must sit behind awareness, not in front of it. Awareness chooses, memory advises, if invited. When memory leads, identity hardens. When awareness leads, identity stays flexible. This is not about rejecting your history. It's refusing to be governed by it.
Resolve is not emotional, it's positional. It's deciding where authority lives, not in regret, not in nostalgia, not in explanation. Authority lives where attention is placed deliberately. The ego panics when memory loses control. It asks, if I am not this story, who am I? That question sounds deep, but it's a distraction. You don't need a new story, you need presence. When memory arises, don't fight it. Fighting gives it power. You assess relevance. Is this helping me out better now, or is it pulling me backwards? If it's pulling you backwards, disengage. Cleanly, quietly, without the drama. Freedom is not feeling good. Freedom is not feeling resolved. Freedom is not being governed by what no longer applies. Presence is not passive, it's an active stance. And every time you return to it, you reclaim authorship from the past.
Presence is power, not affirmations, not visualization, not mindset slogans. Presence. When you are actually present, memory loses its leverage. Old shame weakens, old identities loosen, and choice returns. This is not mystical and it's not subtle, it's mechanical. Awareness creates, displaced awareness repeats. Most people believe they're stuck because they lack clarity, confidence, or courage. In reality, they're stuck because their attention keeps consulting a version of themselves that no longer exists. They're trying to move forward while constantly checking backwards. Every time you notice replay, explanation, justification, or silent defense, that is your signal. Not to analyze it, not to fix it, to return. That return is authorship. You do not need to heal the past to stop living in it. You need to stop feeding it attention. Memory only stays powerful while it is being rewarded with identity. Creation responds to what you assume and enact now, not to what you survived, not to what you regret, not to what you endlessly review. Presence is not passive awareness, it's a decision. And every time you make it, repetition weakens.
When you live this way, other people feel it immediately, even if you never explain it. They feel less judged around you, less frozen, less defined by their worst moments. That happens because you are no longer reinforcing identity through memory. You're no longer holding people hostage to who they used to be. Instead, you meet effort, movement, responsiveness. That doesn't make you permissive, it makes you precise. You stop confusing history with truth and start responding to what is actually happening. Internally, the same thing happens. Energy that was tied up in self explanation becomes available for action. Attention that was scattered across old stories consolidates into presence. This is how freedom spreads. It's quiet, it's without permission, it's without speeches or labels. Not because you convince anyone of anything, really, but because you stop reinforcing the past as a governing force. Support effort over identity, and the entire field changes, including you.
Here is the line that ends the argument. Memory is a reference point, not a resonance. The past is information, not identity. You are not obligated to carry old versions of yourself. If you keep rehearsing who you were, you will keep recreating it. That's not fate, it is instruction. Creation does not respond to sincerity alone, it responds to what you assume is true now. And if your assumptions are anchored in memory, repetition is guaranteed. Presence is the only place power exists. Not yesterday, not tomorrow, now. Use memory when it's useful. Learn what it has to teach. Then put it back where it belongs, behind awareness, not in front of it. You do not need permission to change. You do not need approval from the past. You do not need to explain movement. You only need to stop letting memory decide.
Resolve is choosing to live here, not in defense, not in rehearsal, not in justification. Here, where effort matters, where awareness creates, where identity stays flexible. Resolve isn't dramatic, it's steady, it's returning again and again, even when memory pulls, even when ego resists, even when the past tries to reclaim authority. This isn't about denying what happened, it's about refusing to be governed by it. You can respect the past without living inside it. You can learn from it without dragging it forward. You can acknowledge it without letting it define you. Support effort over identity in yourself, in others, every single time. That choice ends cycles. It breaks repetition. It restores authorship. Stop letting memory decide.
Let this be absolutely clear. If you keep returning to the past for permission, explanation, or reassurance, you are choosing repetition over creation. Not because you're weak, not because you're broken, but because familiarity feels safer than responsibility. The past does not hold truth, it holds data. And data only has power when you keep treating it like identity. Every moment you hesitate because of who you were, every moment you explain instead of act, every moment you shrink because of once happened, memory is in charge. Quietly, efficiently, with your cooperation. Conscious creation does not require more insight. It requires withdrawal of authority. When you stop consulting memory before acting, something stabilizes. Not emotionally, structurally. Decisions simplify, attention sharpens, movement becomes clean. You are not here to maintain continuity with your former self. You are here to author what comes next. And that means choosing presence even when it feels unfamiliar, choosing effort even when identity resists, choosing action even when the past argues. Nothing mystical happens when you do this, nothing dramatic. What happens is far more dangerous to the old patterns. Things move. And once movement begins, memory loses relevance, identity loosens, possibility expands. Not because you healed harder, not because you tried longer, but because you stopped letting memory decide. That is the line. Do not cross it back.
Let's end this with our comfort. If you keep checking the past before you act, you're not being careful. You're being controlled. The past is not wiser than you are now. It is simply louder because you keep giving it the microphone. Most people think memory protects them. What it actually protects is familiarity. Familiar disappointment, familiar limitation, familiar explanations for why they stay where they are. Ego prefers a known cage to an unknown opening. Here's the part that matters. The present does not reward explanation, it rewards movement. You can understand every pattern you've ever had and still repeat them if you keep letting memory author your decisions. Insight without authority, change does nothing. Awareness without action collapses back into habit. Conscious creation is not about believing harder, it's about removing old permissions. The permission you're removing is this one. The idea that who you were gets to vote on who you become. Every time you pause because of an old failure, every time you soften your effort because of past embarrassment, every time you lower your expectation because of what once went wrong, you are rehearsing obedience. And obedience always produces repetition. Presence is not a feeling, it's a stance. It is deciding that what is happening now matters more than what already happened. It's choosing effort over identity, action over explanation, movement over memory. You do not owe the past continuity, you owe the present honesty. If something from your history improves your action now, use it. If it weakens your action, discard it. That decision alone will change how your life moves. This is where the line actually is. You either keep letting memory decide, or you decide that it no longer gets to. There is no third option. So choose.
If this challenged you, don't let it end here. Support the conversation by liking the video so it reaches the people who need it. Subscribe if you want more work that doesn't soften the truth. Share it with someone who's ready to stop repeating their past. And hit the bell if you want to stay present for what comes next. Attention shapes reality. Choose where you place yours. Until next time, think differently, dream boldly, and create consciously.
I'm a quiet rebel. I don't need a shower. Changing the world from the inside out. No fist in the air.